thank you very much for having me. I had the pleasure of having a brief chat with you a couple weeks ago, and you very graciously invited me to share my journey. And also thank all of you for taking the time to have a wild and crazy Wednesday with me. You are in the right place if you are interested in seeing for yourself how to turn simple doodles into dollars. Given that the group that we are with here, I know that you can draw a straight line, but generally people, that's a big stumbling block for people. But essentially, the more important, how to visualize your value proposition so it's instantly understood by your best buyers. And my moving targets framework for leading with vision, which combines my combat leadership experience and direct marketing principles. So that's a lot, but I can tell you a little bit about my story and how I got here. Joined the Army right after high school, learned how to blow stuff up and dig ditches, and neither of them are very lucrative civilian skills. So I, pun intended, came up in the elevator industry, went to Baltimore to work for Schindler Elevator and worked my way into the executive level of construction management for a Finnish company, which brought me to DC. Was building a career in the construction management industry, but I was kind of building climbing the ladder against a civilian career that I really didn't have a whole lot of love for. So I had been studying direct marketing and internet marketing stuff online after work, and figured out how to become this thing called a copywriter, where I went to my favorite gym and said, it costs you the same whether you have 6 people in here or 60. Give me $100 for Facebook ads and I'll do my best. Turn that into a very successful online marketing business. And that took me all over the place. But explaining what it is as a copywriter, what you do, it's kind of a challenge. It's very abstract. It's not the circle with the C. So I would imagine the same kind of struggles that you have when you are trying to explain to people that I got pigeonholed in being a cartoonist. That's what they're calling me. So I finally just said, I'll just be that, when I was trying to kind of make the bridge into the visual stuff. But yeah, it's turning words into salesmanship in print, essentially what it is. And it's been around for a long time. It's nothing new, but I was trying to put a new spin on it. So I was using visuals to explain the things that I do, because I was just sick of people looking at me with their head sideways. And I just doubled down on this thing that, I just kind of got called a cartoonist, even though I was visually facilitating these sales and marketing campaigns for people. I just said, this is actually kind of fun, and just doubled down on being a cartoonist. So now I'm billing myself as Chief Combat Imagineer of my visual strategy firm, and people call me a cartoonist all they want, because I'm a jack of a lot of different trades. But the lesson being that the key is to, connect the dots looking back, get started. And I learned along this whole way that the only difference between a $1 bill and a $100 bill is the message on the paper, and words create worlds. So ultimately, if you want, you can call yourself whatever you want, but it's that self-talk that ultimately is going to dictate your success in whatever that it is you want to do. And I want to address the elephant in the room up front. I mean, sales and marketing gets a bad rap, as it should. A lot of it, especially with all the shouting on social media and all kinds of just most advertising you see is pretty shallow. American business isn't really typically interested in developing deep relationships with their customers. It's churn and burn a lot from what I've seen. So I'm trying to be a force for good in this world of sales and marketing. And I want to show you the difference for all this, but also I want to make you all feel comfortable, because ultimately safety is what we're seeking in a salesperson. And we're all selling all the time. So I just want to clearly differentiate what I'm doing and what I'm sharing with you, as well as give you some tools to make this, wherever you are in your visual practice, more successful, and that you can capture some of the value that capture and communicate your value more clearly to the stakeholders who are hiring you. And ultimately, sales is just problem solving, and it's what you say when you're face to face with a client to get them emotionally involved in the future state that's good for them. And it's a transfer of emotion, that emotion being confidence that you can help them. And marketing, I like to view it just as storytelling. It's what you say to get someone predisposed and pre-motivated to be in a relationship with you. And it's ultimately to make selling superfluous. So again, just more vocabulary, because words means things. There's a difference between influence, persuasion, and manipulation. Influence, and these are not out of any kind of dictionary, but I look at influence as changing someone's behavior. Persuasion is showing kind of someone a preferential perspective to get a desired outcome out of them. And manipulation is ultimately using these tactics to take advantage of someone or to get them to do something which is not in their best interest. So it's kind of the same thing. That the tools I'm about to show you are, they're just tools. It's like a scalpel can be used to do life-saving surgery, or really do a lot of damage. So that's how I look at this stuff. And like I said, my intention has been to be a force for good. I have previously represented clients that were not always selling the best stuff, and so I'm trying to do better by sharing and making this stuff. I mean, the same reason that the guy who wrote the book Influence, Dr. Cialdini, he wrote that book to kind of protect people from the predatory selling habits from the marketers, advertisers. And so that's kind of the purpose of all this. And ultimately, what I'm trying to do is help tell the story and help share my mechanisms I've used to get behavior change, and get clear goals set for you and me, and so that we're all on the same page. So we can actually, with all this preamble, actually begin with where we're going now. So part one is actually how to turn doodles into dollars. But are there any questions up to now? I have not seen any pop up, but that does not mean that they are not there. So any questions so far? Awesome. So what is the secret to selling anything to anyone? It's find out what someone wants and then show them how to get it. And the trouble is that people don't actually know what they want until you show it to them. So that's where we come in. Especially this, I've used visual storytelling in the advertising space. I've used it in doing internal marketing. I've used it to sell. I've used sketch notes. I've used graphic recording throughout the whole entire customer journey. I've followed salespeople around in bigger organizations and boiled down their best sales pitches and turned them into visual icons, and so that we can get the top performing salespeople to be on the same. We can bring the lower performing salespeople up a level from and get everybody on the same page within an organization. So this stuff is really powerful, and it can create a dramatic change for an organization, especially getting their sales, marketing, and management all on the same page. So I don't know, I have not heard of anyone else doing the same kind of thing that I'm doing, but I'm just telling you what I've had a lot of success just showing people like what the salespeople are actually saying, and making it very clear to the prospects, making it very clear to the prospects so that the salespeople can sell better, but also so that the organization can be on the same page with what the value that they're actually providing their clients. So this is a Tony Robbins thing, but what people actually want is kind of a sliding scale between certainty and variety, significance and connection, and ultimately, once those basic human needs are satisfied, people are looking for growth and contribution. And kind of the perfect persuasion, the idea is saying exactly what somebody wants to hear. And we all want safety, so we need trust and get into rapport with someone before we're going to buy anything. We're looking to be seen and liked, so we want to be accepted by the people that we're communicating with. We need to protect our egos and self-image. Ultimately, when you want to sell, like selling to a tough guy, veteran entrepreneur, you're going to talk to me much differently than you would try to sell to my mom. So it's just like very different kinds of identities and the kind of words that you use, even though you're like, just anyway. So I very clearly, identity and dissatisfaction. We all want to be physically comfortable and seek a state of taking no action. That is our natural state, is to not change. So making it as safe and comfortable to get what we want. And so it's the step one is getting very clear about who has a problem and capturing what are their frustrations, their wants, their fears and aspirations. And you can visually do this and write them down and turn them into icons as part of this process, is identifying this one ideal person for who you are trying to serve. 2, identifying where they want to be, what happens before they do business with you, and then after they do business with you, and break it down into what do they have before they start working with you? What do they have before they have clarity on where they're trying to go with if you're providing visual maps and processes? How do they feel before they have a game plan to move their organization forward? What are the emotions before and after? What does their average day look like? And what is their status? That's the identity piece. What are the stories they tell themselves? What's that self-talk? How do you enter the conversation going on in their mind? And if you really want to play it even harder, I did it in the beginning of this thing, the good versus evil. Like, there's good salespeople and there's bad salespeople. How do you create a paradigm shift from, like, you don't want to be like those people over there. You want to be part of this safe and ethical sales group over here. So when you can summarize all that into a before and after, I guess, a statement of value, you're starting to get verbal, but we want to shift to visual. So ultimately, you're going to sequence these beliefs, and they're going to have objections to each one of these. So you're going to identify the current state, and they're going to have objections to why they can't do something. So, like, for example, knowledge is not the objection, because it's not like a lack of knowledge that we can't do things, because if knowledge was the answer, every librarian would have a Lamborghini. We all know exactly how to lose weight. We know how to do the right thing, but a lot of times we choose not to because we have self-talk. We have got objections for why we're not doing it. So once you figure out where they are and where they want to be, there's 6 or 12 objections to up to and including not having the money. So when you can create the value, it makes it much easier when you can bring up that objection and turn it into a benefit to continue to slide them towards where they want to be. So I know I'm cramming like 10 years of marketing and sales experience into 20 minutes, but are there any questions here? All right, we'll continue on with how do you actually visualize the value now that we have the verbal part. So again, a lot of these I've not invented any of these frameworks. I've just kind of adopted them and put them in this order. So credit goes where it's due. I've seen there's all these frameworks. Like I said, I did not invent any of these things, but making them visual. The key is that your product is not your value proposition. It's the identifying the product and how it makes your client feel, both on their emotional wants, the rational needs, and the hidden fears. So there's things that people say they want, there's things that they won't say that they want, and then there's things that they can't even tell you that are deep in that lizard brain, that visuals, it just grabs people by the eyeballs and they can't help but look away. And we've been programmed from a very long time to respect the teacher. We had 12 years of minimum of like having that teacher stand up in the front of the room and point to the blackboard and say, little Johnny or little Jenny, you're gonna pay attention. And so when you as the salesperson, the ethical salesperson, can draw out and draw in the people into this conversation, you have them in a state of just this, they're putty in your hands. So this is very powerful stuff when you know that you're leading them towards where you want them to go, but you've done the work ahead of time to identify, the pains and problems that they're having, and you're capturing it visually and taking them on this road to where you want them to go. But ultimately, empathizing with them, and I like to use a visual metaphor of a stairway to heaven, because their natural state is not to move. And this is some frame control tactics, but ultimately helping them understand that they are not in a good place, and that scary, painful place that they are comfortable being uncomfortable in doesn't have to be that way. And in fact, you've seen the better way. There's another way, and you can give them a way out of this painful, smoky, hot place. And you can build them an elevator. I mean, I know I could build them an elevator, point them to the steps, or just toss them a rope. It depends on how much service do they want? How badly do they want to get out of there? How quickly do they want to move? It's like, do you want me to do it for you? Do you want me to do it with you? Or do you want to do it yourself? That's kind of how I present these kinds of offers, because I know that I don't want to leave you down in that painful, that fiery pit, and I can take you to the promised land because I've been there, and I don't want to leave you behind. And I know, and just helping them see the pain that they're in is ultimately in an empathetic way. It's not a judgmental way. It's just helping them see that. I mean, that's ultimately that's all sales is, helping someone see the problem and a way out, and helping them make a decision. So when you can capture their current state and you can see their future state, the value of what you have to offer is in the value of that problem. It's what are the consequences, both physically and emotionally, of them not taking action? What's the impact of the solution that you're going to provide? And what ultimately is the root cause that your solution is really getting in there and digging up these painful these actions that are causing them much more grief throughout other parts of their business or life. And when you frame it that way, it's much more it's much less about how much do you charge. It's what, just take my money. Like I trust you. Let me go with you. Let's go do this thing. Let's solve it for real. So especially when you can present it to them visually like this, they can't look away from this, and it's burned into their brains. And when you do this elegantly, and you're not explaining them throughout the entire process, you can provide a slide-free sales presentation that cuts through the noise, and you can create that back of the napkin sales pitch that everyone loves to talk about, but you can really create some mind-blowing stuff. And that's, I call it mental dynamite. It's when they have instant understanding, where they both see the logical building blocks, the system that you're going to get them results, and they also have emotional feelings heightened both before, during, and after. They have experiences with you, what they can clearly feel what it was like before you came into their life, and they feel comfortable that you're going to take them where they need to go. And it's a powerful thing, so that even if they don't do business with you right now, you haven't damaged the relationship by helping them see the solution. So I'm about to finish up, and if there's any questions, or I'm just an excellent teacher, which I'll take that. But cool. Well, so finishing up, this is my moving targets process, where we actually put it all together to create that visually valuable conversation that creates consistent conversion and predictable profits. Because I like to call the people that listen to me courageous capitalists. It's like kind of a trigger word, but it's like you can create all money earned ethically is a product of value creation. And I have no qualms going deep with clients and providing them services that are going to transform their lives and their relationships and their businesses. So I have no problem solving problems for a profit. But ultimately, how do you get someone to have that kind of deep conversation with you? I've been using cartoons and influential infographics to create lead generation materials. I haven't had to spend a cent on advertising doing it this way. I'm pretty much by friendly referral only, because I try to go as deep as possible with my clients. And I want them to be my biggest fans. So I create material like this where I ultimately, when I want to get a meeting with someone, I draw a cartoon or a caricature of their problem, and I say, like, let's have let's set a meeting. I'll then draw out. I said, here's how I see the problem, and I'll facilitate that conversation. So here's how I see it. Here's your current state, and here's how this new future I think we could be doing. And I'm trying to build that tension to create the gap in there so that I can help them sell themselves. And ultimately, I want them to see that I created something totally unique for them. And it's a slide-free sales presentation that's just very elegant, even though I'm using rough cartoons. The conversation is deep and powerful, and it has them centered. It's not about me trying to hack products or services, whether I'm trying to sell you a cartoon or a consulting day or a whole entire campaign where I come in and re-engineer your entire sales force. That might be it, but they need to think that the idea was coming out of their mind. Like, it has to be their idea. It can't be. I can't just spell it out and tell them, like, your salespeople suck, your marketing's terrible, it's confusing, and I don't know how anyone even buys from you. That obviously would not be a very productive conversation. So it's ultimately all boils down to structure, storytelling, and spreadsheets. And so that's where this moving targets framework came in. I take things from an abstract to an anti-fragile structure. I take my storytelling from verbal to visual, and my spreadsheets are ultimately how am I measuring success? How I go from limited to leveraged? How do I, for example, this conversation that we're having here, I'm going to be transcribing this video, and it's going to be a short, helpful book that I can now send to prospective clients. I can send to, it's going to live on the internet forever. So it's like, I never have to repeat myself ever again. So there are lots of ways to leverage everything that you do, especially with the visual aspect. It's intellectual property, so I'll even have conversations in an industry or niche that I want to get into, and I'll sketch note, I'll graphic record, I'll do all kinds of stuff to develop IP around a subject that I'm very interested in. And now I have an illustrated business book that is subject matter experts. I don't even have to be the subject matter expert. It's a very Napoleon Hill-esque, seeking the wisdom of these brilliant people, and I'm capturing it into a visual artifact. And now I could sell that book for 15, 20 bucks, whatever, or, hey, like, I think we can turn this into a best-selling book. And anyway, there's like lots of different ways you can leverage. Anyway, I use that when I consult with clients. I have 9 frameworks. I take them through a commander's intent framework. I help them understand the where they're trying to take their organization, help them capture and communicate their whole entire plan from the top general to the bottom private. I'm leveraging military concepts for civilian businesses that have worked timelessly. But when the private doesn't know what the general wants, it's the general's fault. It's not the lowly private. So from the lowest member of that organization, the front desk person is actually a very customer-facing critical team member. And if she doesn't or he doesn't know what the general wants, and that one sentence transformative relationship that the business wants to have with their customers, she's not going to be empowered to bring in new accounts. So it's ultimately about capturing what the founder CEO wants and getting it clear throughout the entire organization, from the lowest janitor to the highest executive, everyone on the same page with the same vision about where the company is going and the transformative results that they get for their clients. And then I do competitive intelligence. So where are they and how are they differentiated themselves in the market? You know, we put together battle maps. Ultimately, it's like, where do we want to play? Here's these different areas for that we can create value and capture market share. But also here are the leaky buckets within our own organization that we need to plug up. And so here's a streamlined sales process. Here's our marketing message that needs to be consistent throughout. So that's the structure of, I'm taking these abstract structures and making them anti-fragile throughout the entire organization. And then like that frame control, I go deep and help them see the difference between, you can go into a building, a high-rise building, and look out one window and you see nothing but a busy parking lot or a 6-lane highway. And you look out the other window and you see a beach and the dolphins are swimming in the bay. So it's like the same building looking out two different windows. So having that same kind of conversation, that stairway to heaven model. And then dog whistles are like, how do you resonate with the best clients? I certainly am not for everybody. I'm a fast, rugged, kind of irreverent cartoonist, copywriter. I'm not going to be doing much consulting for, the pharmaceutical space. That's very unlikely. But if Harley Davidson wants to work together, I'm all about it. So it's how do you put out the right kind of messages so that you get the right kind of results and the right kind of people coming back to you? How do you get the right kind of clients? And then, as we all know, the essential images. What kind of visuals? Like, I'm not a super highly polished guy. So it kind of shows up in my art. And we all know we probably hate being, everyone's, I can't draw. But anyway, the essential images that you show throughout a sales presentation. So I've got like those kind of workshops I work out with people, and the OKRs popularized by Google Venture people, crunching out the appropriate money math and the cash flow calendar of when they can expect to see results, because that's ultimately when you hire somebody to do sales, they want to see exponential growth. And so showing them when they cut me a check, how I'm going to make them a whole lot of money. So that's the framework that I've used. And ultimately, if you have some kind of infographic that boils down your services, or at least the value that you create, that just piques the interest, that just, would you be interested in continuing the conversation? That's all you're trying to do. You're not trying to make a sale. You're just trying to get someone to raise their hand. So I call that the conversion cartoon. Just saying, yes, I am interested. And then you, without using any kind of fancy slideshow, I mean, this is as high tech as I get with the slides, not only because I was kind of having a hard time with my fancy iPad, which is, I'm not techie at all. Whiteboards, napkins, piece of paper, butcher paper, whatever. Having clearly laid out a plan. This is how I see your current state. Is this right? Help me understand what your guys are going through, because this is how I see it. This is what it looks like from the outside. Getting them to tell you what the future would be like, and then walking them through a framework for here's how I would get you results. Here's how my structure, storytelling, and spreadsheets. That's my slide-free sales presentation. I just draw these 3 circles out, and I just kind of work through them and say, while we're here, let's just start. This is kind of a 3-month-long project, but while we're here, why don't we just work on the frame control piece, or let's get really clear about what your commander's intent is. So these are my frameworks, but this is just what I do. I'm quite certain that all of you have your own brilliance that you can share with people, and if you put the work into figuring out what it is that they're actually buying from you, because I'm quite certain it's not just pretty pictures. Are they, if you're graphic recording an event, like, how do you articulate that value? If you're facilitating, there's so much, there's just, this field is so diverse. You communicating those kinds of conversations and facilitating them in a small way, in a very non-threatening, easy way, will help you capture, communicate, and create value ultimately with the client that they'll pay. And whatever you ask, it's up to you to define the value visually with them and help them see it, like, right there in front of them. So I'd like to encourage you to just end on, when vision drives decision and when values are clear, decisions are very easy. So if you have any additional questions, or if you want a copy of these slides, I'd be happy to provide them to you. But that's kind of it for my slideshow, and be happy to answer. Oh, now I have got some chat questions, but no questions.
I'd kind of like to, so thanks for that, Eric. Well, Amanda's had her hand up first. Amanda, you want to go ahead?
Real quick, I thought I heard you mention something way earlier in the presentation. The key word for me is influence doctor. Was that a idea or a book, or what was that?
Influence doctor.
Did I not hear that? Okay, cool.
It's all yours. It's all yours.
Yay! Yes. All right. Cool.
I kind of tell people I'm a persuasion professional. So, what influence doctor is all yours.
So I kind of have a question for the group. And by the way, I'm fascinated with what Greg is painting in the background over there. I'd love to get kind of if you're okay, talking about it, Greg, but not now. You can do it later. You ready now? Okay. All right. Yeah. What do you got?
So I've got a buddy with a farm, and he creates organic. He grows organic foods, and he does worm tea and composting and different things. And he was talking about marketing, interestingly enough. And I said, well, you don't have a brand. And so I drew him about half a dozen sketches. One of them was these farm animals holding up, he has a weird name for it. It's called Bottoms Up Organics. And I don't know what, I have an idea that the soil is from the bottom, they come up, but I drew him a bunch of variations of what that might look like. And this really appealed to him. So he talked me into painting him a sign. I told him you can take the logo I made, you can have it printed on vinyl, and but he says, no, I want a hand painted thing. So he's paying probably twice what it's worth, and I'm undervaluing my work, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. And so I figured since I'm going to drive it to him and throw it in my truck and drive it to him tomorrow, that maybe I'd paint through this session.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Looks great. Yeah.
I was watching you at the same time I was watching Eric. So
sorry to distract.
No, not at all. It was fun to watch. I have a question for Eric and for the rest of the group, right? And it pretty much goes like this. So I usually get hired by somebody inside a company, and it could be to do a graphic facilitation or a graphic recording. And we usually have a great initial conversation where we outline what it is we're going to be doing. And then all of a sudden I get the handoff where I have to talk to the contracts person or the finance person or the whatever. And since this person didn't have a good mental model of what I do as a visual practitioner, I find myself having to explain the value of it. And saying, well, I talk people draw and it's awesome. That doesn't really fly with the financial folks, right? So I'm just curious, how do you talk about the value of what you do to people who have never seen it before?
I do just that. I say, you got to see it. I don't try to defend that kind of situation. I get a commitment from the stakeholder that I already know. I know that the procurement person is going to beat me up. It's a buzzsaw. If I got to defend myself to that person, I'm screwed. So I get a commitment from the CEO. I try to work. I don't work with people at a lower level of the business. I go all the way to the top because this stuff is so it's kind of soft. It's not a super hard thing. So I need them to champion it. And so I want to say, well, hey, like we agreed on the value and we agreed on this thing. The procurement person is, I just try to head it off. I've been there. So I get them to say, yeah.
Can I clarify, Brian? Are you saying that you have to convince the money guy to go ahead with it? Because if you're talking to the decision makers from the beginning, right, and that's usually the problem that we run into, is if you're not talking to the decision maker, and I'm sure you know this, then you're just going to repeat yourself, right? Is that what you found, Eric?
Yeah, I try to get everybody in the same room. I might have a quick 15-minute triage session with like an executive brief quickly and say, okay, so my framework for this is issue, impact, results, and who else is affected. It's Ian Altman's same side selling. I have this quick framework, and it's like I know that all right, so this is a $20 million company. I know there's other people in the C-suite that are going to be affected by this. So let's schedule another meeting. That I'm not a flake. So let's get everybody together. Again, it's only take 15-20 minutes, but we're gonna what's the next action? Let's get these people in the same room so we can all agree that we need to actually sit down and do this. And if you guys can't all do that, then you're probably not a great client for me because you're so dysfunctional. So
I wonder, Brian, if you run into those type of problems, or someone would run into those type of problems where you have a procurement officer asking questions because maybe the decision maker, whoever you're talking to, is not able to translate the value, and then you're back and you're having to re-explain it again because it didn't translate as well. Because I can see that happening too.
Yeah. So Ashanti, there's a question behind that, which is, what language do you give the decision makers to translate what they sense intuitively from having experienced the work to something that, then as they're having to advocate on our behalves, what language do we hand them to make their jobs easier?
You give them that visual sales presentation. You give them that back of the napkin, that visual value proposition that's created during that conversation. That the hell yes happens right then and there. If it's for me, it's like it's got to be a hell yes or no. And like they have this artifact that they can champion you and show all. Like it doesn't mean anything, but like graphic recording stuff. It means so much more to the people who are actually in the room. It's just it blows your mind. And then you show it to someone like on the internet, they're like, I don't get it, or someone who wasn't on there. It's a pretty picture versus like something that means so much to the people that's how I would encourage you to empower them with the languages and visuals that they can go to bat for you. Because I'm sure you've been doing this longer than I have, but I've been beat up pretty bad trying to sell this throughout companies. So
that's interesting. I have a sort of a different long and winding road into this work, and I think Brian and I talked about this in the past, but originally I was a design and build contractor doing a lot of kitchens and that sort of thing, and I found that I almost never would not get a job, and because I could I could see a house that was being framed, walk onto the site and start drawing, and when the client could see that I knew what they wanted, I could listen to them and create a vision for what it was that they were going to do. A lot of times I do that with a lumber crayon on the concrete, and they have a picture of a 3D drawing of their kitchen on the floor, and they're basically, where can I sign? They're ready to go. And so for me, the value that you talk about with the visual was inherent to the process. And it's interesting because when you go and you work with organizations and you're talking about ideas and facilitating for groups, the thing you talked about, if the first person they talk to doesn't know, what the general wants, doesn't know the core idea or goal for the company, I've seen so many people in those situations kind of where the light bulb's going off, and the lower level people are saying, now I get what the company is doing. And so I recognize that, but I have had trouble with the part where I go to them and say, here's your problem. You know, you have a problem. And I'm very intrigued by the idea of drawing it so it's disarming and so that it's back to sort of the roots. Because again, people are, you know, if somebody has a problem and you're their go-to guy, you're lizard brain, and they know that you're the, you know, the top guy in the country, and they're going to come to you and say, like, I have a problem. But when you approach somebody, it's very difficult to sort of pose to them that I can do something better than you can do, is essentially the talk. And how would you, what were your thoughts beyond that?
I would say Socratic selling. I don't ever, yeah, it's questions. It's like, what does it say? The prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. So it's like, here's how I see what you're experiencing. Is this right? Do you have this problem ultimately? And depending on who you're dealing with, even the word choice between, is this an issue for you in your organization versus is this a problem? Those, even that slight different tweak will get a different response from different people. Like I'm very straightforward and I can kick my own butt. Like, I mean, I can take straight talk really well. But when I'm going cold into someone who I don't know very well, I'm very softer with my language. So
would somebody please draw I can kick my own butt?
Well, the difference being when I walked on a job site, I knew what they needed. With whereas, you know, I liked your Socratic selling idea. What is it? What is your problem? What's your problem, man?
It's just leading with questions and an open heart. To like, here's how I think I can help with. I see this as a problem, and here's how I would go about solving it. Is this right? Here's how I see it. Is this right? And they go, no, it's not that. It's, and then you hand them the pen, and it's just like, now you have them there, and they're telling you exactly what they want. People will tell you exactly what they're going to buy. They'll tell it to you. So they just empowering them to give you the buying signal. Like they'll do it. So yeah.
I think, Eric, too, the other thing that was coming through for me and listening to you is really doing your homework up front on who it is you're trying to sell to and really understanding what their problems are and even what some of their objections might be. So marrying that background research with this Socratic selling approach means you're not being that pushy, I know your problem here, I'm going to fix it in these 3 easy steps, but you at least are confident as you're having the conversation, because sometimes people actually don't know they have the problem. And it's only by having that conversation that you can maybe surface things that they weren't aware of, or they're just not ready for it. You can go in a different direction.
Absolutely. The frame I like to have is the walk behind the woodshed with a gentle arm over the shoulder, to have like a quiet, like a firm but caring conversation behind the woodshed where it's just us. We're just going to talk, and having that, doing all that work ahead of time is that's really where all the magic. What makes something magic is how much work has gone into it to make it look like it wasn't scripted. It wasn't, you know, that's where the real magic is. And no, like, to actually care. Like, there's so few people who actually care, to be seen and heard and cared about, and coming with a gentle heart to say, here, I'm here to help you. That's, if more people just tried to woo you like that, I mean, the world would be a much better place instead of just trying to hawk whatever kind of crummy solution or product. Yeah, I mean, I'm just, thank you very much for bringing that up. But it's a huge part and it's hard to sell the research phase, because research isn't sexy, but it's so important to ask those questions ahead of time so that you sound like you are an expert at that point, you know? So it's like, it's not like sounding like an expert. It is, you become an expert about what that your client cares about.
I think that approach is what would help me feel more authentic, because then I actually know that I understand them, or I'm more confident that I understand them. And there was something else you had touched on lightly too, and I don't know if we'll have time to get into that today, but just even before you even get into this space is think about who am I and who do I want to work with and what kind of work do I want to do before I'm out there just pitching to anybody and everybody just for $1, because you know, where do you want to be in life, and what kind of people what kind of problems do you want to help solve?
There's a mentor of mine, Dan Sullivan, says, who do you want to be the hero to? And it's getting very clear about who you are and where, like, the kind of people that you want to surround yourself with, so that you don't end up hating your clients and business that you build, where it becomes like you need to be very clear about who you are, what you want. Then you go and provide transformational value to your customer, client, and then it becomes something even bigger. It's like you, them, it. That the business becomes bigger than the two of you together, and it frees you up to go become more and more true to who you are and create more value for more thems, and it gets bigger. So yeah, that's huge. And thank you for pointing that out.
I'd like to maybe build on that and ask you a question about, you said something earlier about making sure that you have the right client that you're talking to. You said you wouldn't be in the pharmaceutical arena, but Harley Davidson would eat it up, right? What if you're trying to make the world a better place? What if your goal is to, you know, bring about, to somehow create a bridge and maybe bring people together? And since this is a Nova Scribes event, I think politically there's some serious issues where this comes into. What might your thoughts be around approaching someone with different beliefs, but who could certainly benefit from building that bridge? And some of the situations that we face today, if your goal is truly to make the world a better place, but not to make $1, like was mentioned there, Deb, what would your comments be? How would you go into a situation where you're trying to get someone to rethink their own position, perhaps?
I try to understand my opposition better. I want to understand their points better than they do. I try to fix my so I'm a Jordan Peterson, politically kind of conservative guy, but I'm a young guy and I'm covered in tattoos, so I get kind of this the looks are deceiving. So I try, and I'm being recorded, so I'm trying to be less, I don't want to be super political while recorded, but no, I try to understand the other person's counterpoints better than they even do, so that I can kind of know where they're going to go. And again, I just try to be kind of judoist. I want to feel when they use angry directed language at me, because that's kind of when a lot of times you would start attacking the person instead of the idea. So when I feel them attacking me personally, I already know I'm kind of winning, because I know that if we have a calm conversation about ideas, we can talk about ideas constructively with anybody. But when people get really emotionally heated, as they do in political things, and they start attacking the person, I already okay, well, I'm not going to change this person. So let me just try to understand them and again, empathize with them. So that's kind of, yeah.
But what does the drawing look like?
I have not had it. I guess you're going to get me to do political cartoons, but
not so much.
Yeah.
But I use politics as an example because the North Virginia thing. But you know, the idea is that oftentimes, you know, bringing people together is really what we need. You know, and finding that common ground is something that I think is so valuable. And a lot of people, you know, I really look forward to doing work with organizations who are trying to make the world a better place. I try to do pro bono work if I can. And, you know, there's sort of that idea that this is something that people should experience, whether they can afford it or not. And you did, you know, you brought it up, you know, if you care. And I find that I would love to be able to sell the processes to people who don't necessarily think they need it, but I, from the outside, feel that it would make the world a better place. And I'm intrigued by the back of the napkin, and you know, and the idea that visual. How did you say it? You said illustration is persuasion, or you said something catchy. But you know, the idea is how can I take that to the next level if I'm beyond making $1, you know, but building trust, because I feel like you really expressed that by doing your homework, by creating a visual representation of an idea, that you can build trust with a potential client in a, you know, in a firm and rapid sort of process. Can we do it, bringing people together? And yeah, I don't know, maybe something to think about and follow up later. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I love that. I know I sit on the board for American Dream U, which is a nonprofit. We provide entrepreneurial education to transitioning vets. And like, I have my frameworks that I teach them the mindsets and metrics and methods to build a business that matters. So I'm trying to do it through courageous capitalism, trying to build businesses that are more than just for profit, like the for purpose businesses. So that's how I scratch that itch to try to make the world a better place, because I know I've got some cool skills that I've sold things that I haven't been especially proud of. So I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I want to make sure that I align 100% with the clients that I work with. So I'm trying to get them young, but even though most of these guys are older than me, try to get these. So I just contribute to causes that I care about. So that's how I'm feeding it, and then that way I don't need to charge for it, and I could charge big bucks. I charge full price for the corporate clients because they can. So that's how I balance it. Aligning, charging full price, and then giving away to people that will value it. But
yeah, I work with conscious capitalism, which I'm not sure the relation to what you're talking, but
it's my spin on the same idea. Yeah.
I noticed that Hermika had gone off mute. Hermika, did you have a question you wanted to bring up?
Oh yeah, I did actually, and I forgot what I was going to say. So I like what I was hearing about building the trust, and I will say, coming from working in the social impact side and also outside of work and in the corporate side, all of it really comes down to having a connecting conversation, right? And when you're looking at bringing different social impact initiatives together in partnerships, people know what they want, but they don't know how to describe it sometimes. And that's where the visual part comes in. It's like, yeah, I want this, but not this, and not that rock, but this rock. And then by the time you start putting it out there, it's like, yeah, now we're connecting. And so it's not just saying, here's my problem. And I don't even talk about the visual piece, because I'm not really at the point where I'm like, oh yes, I do this so great. That's why I'm going to call Brian. But I would say that people want to know that they're heard and understood and seen, like you said, but having the connecting conversation, because what I find from a corporate perspective, we're using the same words, but it's not the same language. And so if nothing else, the visual piece of it, I say, from selling it to a big corporate client who doesn't understand it, and say, for example, they're economists and they don't see the point. It's really, how can I help bring the right conversations in the room to help you make the right decisions and derive the right solutions? The how, which might be the visual, is less important to the actual what I need you for. And then once people experience it, it's a totally different thing. So it opens it up to the system, because now you have pockets of people who are valuing your work. And now you're a part of a bigger ecosystem. And all of a sudden, this bright, shiny car or Harley is the work that you do.
You're a motivational speaker on top of a great listener. You're a true catalyst. And thank you very much for sharing. And I think you're spot on, 100%.
Thank you for this experience. I like this. Thank you so much.
Amanda?
Yeah, so I know that, Brian, you asked this question, and I think Greg kind of piggybacked off of it a little bit too already, but just going back to a question about how you set rates and fees and communicate that. I was just curious, because I'm not doing this professionally now, I'm just interested in it, and I use it in my daily life from my 9-to-5 job to help with team building and all that, but I'm not doing it as a facilitator. But I'm curious how you do enter into those conversations. So you sent the conversion cartoon, you started, you had a 15-minute conversation, and then like, how is that topic broached with people? Like, oh, and it costs this much.
I try to solve big problems. I'm trying to get it so that my price looks inconsequential to the kind of value that I'm providing. I know I have a number in my head where I'm not going to work for below this number, but typically I'm trying to create at least, I want them to see at least $1 million on the table. I want them to see it right there in front of them. That way, I'm like, all right, well, you know, I would have done this for 10 grand, but you know, I'll take 50. You know, it's like that'll be all right because I was, you know. So it's all, I want them to see a much bigger number. I always try to sell 10 times. If you give me $1, I'm trying to give you 10 back. So ultimately, I'm trying to solve big problems. If what I'm explaining to them and the thing that I'm seeing isn't a big enough problem for them, I didn't get it right. I didn't do my homework well enough. I'm going to kind of know that before I go into the conversation. And if I'm not providing if I'm not doing my thing in the right way, the structure of this, the problem's not going to be able, it's not going to expand. That rubber band is not going to stretch where I need it to, or it's going to stretch too far. I'm going to like break the rubber band. It's like I need the right amount of tension in there, and that comes through practice. And when I started, it was like I would do it just for a couple. It was just trying to get repetition into case studies and build a portfolio. And when I started, it was anyone who would let me draw in public, I would be there doing it. And if I got paid, that'd be great. And ultimately, that's what I was doing. I was going to seminars, expensive seminars, and creating graphic recording and sketch notes, and using those as lead generation for the smart people that were in the room that paid a bunch of money to be there. I would say, hey, look, you're probably going to need help implementing these strategies. Do you want if you just want my sketch notes, it's $50 or $100 for my notes. Or we could use that's lead generation, or I'll help you implement these strategies that were in this room together. That's how I got started. And then ultimately I used that. I went and I contacted the event promoter to say, hey, I did this, and here I'm selling this is your information. I'm selling it. And ultimately they hired me back to graphic record for the next time that they did stuff. So I know that's I took you on a different tangent, but ultimately trying to create the value, making your fee inconsequential to the amount of value that you provide. But when you get started, you're just trying to get some paid clients is like the biggest deal. And then you build momentum and confidence and case studies, and the price just keeps going up and up and up. It's ultimately, you are a reflection of your clients, and you need to capture like their enthusiasm, and then it turns that sale into marketing, and then the marketing works for you to get higher sales, and it's a virtuous cycle. So
I did that exact same.
Keep going.
Elisa, did you have a thought?
Yes. Hi, Eric. Thank you very much for this presentation. Very interesting. I have a question about if you ever had an experience working with the client who already had an idea well fleshed out in RFP, and who wasn't available to actually kind of go through the visualization with you, and would say to you, here's the RFP, take a look, and you would create something preliminary based on RFP, and then go and do more with the client face to face.
I'm excited about getting into RFP work, which is why I contacted Brian, but no, I have not actually done that. I think it's great. I really try not to do work for hire. I really try to get tied to like longer term engagements and like some kind of success fee kind of thing. And so I think that's probably with the RFP, it's a bigger companies than I've had the privilege to work with. I'm excited to go that direction. I've worked with some big companies, but not anyone who's doing like a proper bid phase 1 and phase 2 and all this kind of stuff. I kind of work a little bit differently. I'm very interested and excited to go that direction, but not yet. But maybe Brian can shed better light.
So maybe just a follow up then, who are your kind of typical clients, or you have a variety of businesses that go to your and request your services, or there's like some kind of niche that you most commonly work with? So
I started with just straight up as a marketer, just going to better known small businesses who are earning between $5 and $20 million a year, kind of mixed breed dog, and like butchers, bakers, candlestick makers, whatever, anyone who would let me work with. Now I like working with intangible products, like so software as a service people, businesses that have high margin, so that already have a sales force that that need to get, the sales force needs to sell more. So that's kind of, it's more, now I'm focused more on intangible services, and pretty much if they can afford me, that's kind of the barrier to entry. I have like an email list and prospect list, and I'm still like, I actively sell and market and rock and roll with this stuff. I'm interested in government clients. I have one government contracting client, but that's kind of where I got introduced to Brian to see where that all goes.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
So that Hermika had a question in chat. Says, do you partner with companies who work on large efforts, or is it generally solo?
As in, do the, I mean, maybe I should just read it. Have long-term, maybe, can you?
Let me actually unmute because my
Sure.
light went off. So my question is, like, if you're doing this work, do you generally partner with other groups or teams, like through a teaming agreement or something, where someone is maybe doing some consulting work or re-engineering or redesign or transformation, and you're coming in to help bring certain conversations in? Is that something that you generally do, or do you just go in, here's the service I offer, and this is the value that I bring?
I have been the junior teaming partner for bigger named consultants who I was just like, I'm the cartoonist, I'm the graphic recorder, work with a facilitator. Now I'm kind of stepping into my own power with this stuff and developing my own IP that's fun, and I have not needed to. Typically I'm in like the sales and marketing side, so I've got a graphic designer that I work with often. But a lot of web developers, I'm not building websites for anybody. So a lot of times I'm building sales and marketing materials and assets that get handed off. They're rough, they're my cartoony rough stuff, and then I'll work with someone else to get them up to, like, we built brochures and full websites and all kinds of stuff. I would like to do much more transformational work, organizational development work, and I'm going in that direction. But I've got a lot of bandwidth to keep on going. Like I said, you're motivating me to even go even further with this. So even with the questions you're asking, I'm like, I got to keep on stepping up. So.
Well, I was just asking that because I'm curious, and it actually, and I see that I know that there's a lot of organizations that I work with, and we're going into client experience and human-centered design more. And there's people that come in, we have big, accounting firms or big four organizations that will come in and do certain things, but not a lot of this. So how would that be a way of entry, and also to expand the pie where you can then actually branch out on your own and say, hey, I'm gonna do an MSA or something for me specifically, and it's not about the visual as much as, even it's about the visual implicitly, but it's not about the visual explicitly. It's about really bringing change and the right conversations in the group. And I do that in a visual way versus a flowchart. Well, a flowchart is visual too, but it's just not as cool.
I'd love to have a one-on-one with you and see what we can come up with, because you're inspiring me to, I try to go as deep as I can, but it's ultimately, I've just been doing sales and marketing and trying to be a sounding board for the founder CEO who they've reached a plateau, which is why they're bringing me in as a consultant. They want to take their $20 million company to 100 million, but they haven't figured out how to do it. So like, okay, well, let's bring this cartoonist guy in here. Maybe he can talk some sense into my team and help capture my vision of what I actually want. Because a lot, like, these guys they're pegged out, or they've reached a plateau of some kind. That's the pain. I already know that. And going into it, I can just start pushing on those pain buttons a little bit, and all of a sudden their wallet pops out. I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's in a good place. We'll try. You're the trusted partner here, and I go to the companies and partner with them in a quiet backdoor way where they can still kind of kick me out before they show me to the rest of the team. And then once we have a business vision board or whatever, then we can go out to the sales teams and do this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's what I've been doing, but maybe it's not the best way. I don't know. So
I would think if I could offer a recommendation, I know that people call it a cartoonist, but it sounds so cheeky.
mhm.
Maybe, I can't think of the right name. I don't know. Maybe you're a crucial conversation curator. I don't know what it is, but it's something that would like sort of pique the interest of saying it applies universally, whether you're doing something visually or not. You're bringing something to the organization that they need and they could respect, because it doesn't feel like cartoonist sounds so like respectful. Like, how is a cartoonist going to change my process?
You gotta see it to believe it. But I
Yes, but you know what I mean, though.
I do. And this is my own, like, I'm experiencing the same thing to my clients. You know, I can solve someone else's problems, but I'm trying to work on my own too at the same time.
Yeah, it's like cartoonist, no.
Yeah.
I'm crucial conversation curator, whatever you are. But you know what I mean? Like something that's like, you're going to listen to me because it matters. You're going to see it and you're going to believe it. But yeah, I just thought about that because I can't believe people call it cartoonist. I'm offended. I'm offended for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
How about visual strategist? Because it sounds like a lot of the work that you do is around strategy and at that high level. And then on the other side, there's the whole idea of embracing whatever it is that people call it, right? So Sonny Brown writes the Doodle Revolution. Diane Bleck's got the Doodle, Discovery Doodles, the Doodle Institute. And so it's like, whatever it is that people call it, it's, you know, let them call it whatever it is. I mean, they know our value as soon as we show up and we put ink on paper. I think, you know, and Eric, actually, that getting back to the value conversation, you had it's almost like you teased this idea out, and it's so juicy. I just can't let it go. But the whole idea of identifying, okay, who am I? And then versus the who are my clients and who am I working for? There's an implicit choice and a decision that's in there. And it's the choice of who is it that I don't work for?
Mhm.
And that's a value call. And I think that, you know, values decisions are things that you want to make way before you actually get close to them. So I'm curious, you had kind of talked about it. Who are the kinds of clients that you don't work for or would not work for? And I'd love to open that up. I'd love to hear from other people because, you know, hearing that informs my values as well. So Eric, who is it that you would not work for?
So especially in the internet marketing space, there's plenty of these. When I see their marketing that's super hypey, that's you know, give me $49 for this newsletter and money's going to shoot out of your computer. I can't. I have worked with them in the past and I've always been burned as far as how it all ends up working out. So I want to make sure that, like, there's gaps in my portfolio that I want to fill, that I have an idea, like the portfolio of companies that as I grow as a management consultant and business owner, how I want them all to kind of fit together into the bigger picture. I've got a clear picture of where I'm going. But ultimately, like, if they're super hypey, all they care about is churn and burn with their customers. They're not interested in long-term relationships. They just want to, I can see them coming a mile away. Whether it's more like I've seen it. It's hard to say, but the hypey, just trying to make a quick buck kind of companies that end up hiring sales and marketing guys that give them more of what they want. That I'm like, that's not me. So I'm curious with the people that are in your group. It's so diverse. I'm so very interested in hearing some ideal clients versus no deal clients.
I can go. So I am very much interested in social innovation, impact, and change. So for me, in thinking about it, my interest is in small businesses and organizations, as well as nonprofits that are focused on social change and innovation and change. I'm also interested in community work. So, communities, church-based organizations are my ideal clients, and that's who I'm currently focused on. I think for me, what's not ideal would be a big, big corporations that that may say they're interested in social change. I'm a little suspicious around all of that, having gone to a few webinars. So yeah, I just want to focus on small businesses and people. I think that comes first before big corporation.
I try not to work for anybody on the dark web, the deep web.
How are you finding these people, first of all, Greg?
I don't even know what that is.
I find
think,
I work for, like, I go follow, a lot of my leads come because of my day job work. I work in tech. So, you know, over the years, you build this network of people who've worked with you and know what you do. And so, you know, I may have worked with them 2-3 jobs ago, but they'll say, hey, and now I'm working at, you know, I'm working at Apple. You want to come and do something? And so that's kind of nice. But I do open myself up for, you know, opportunities. Like I worked with a education nonprofit, and then when they're doing a conference on racial equity in teaching, or I did a social activism conference in Sonoma State that I still think about today, because some of the topics and the speakers who were talking with us, I found a lot of really interesting. Like, it was a world I normally don't go to. And my deal with them is I didn't charge them very much. I charged them just for supplies and my time, which is, you know, not that much. But I rationalized it because I got a piece that I could show in my portfolio, which I normally can't. Most of my work that I do for corporations just can't be shown, no matter how nice it is, or how much I would, you know, obscure any details. So I think it's just a matter of putting yourself out there. You can't draw what you don't understand. So I find that I leverage my career in tech because so much jargon and so much, you know, issues and stuff like that. At least I understand. I have a pretty high starting point of understanding what they're talking about. But, you know, you put me in pharma, for example, I'd have a hard time.
I think I found that I was joking about not working very much on the dark web, but there's very few that I won't work for. I've worked for Medtronic and Kaiser and Genentech, and I know nothing about that. But I think what happens is you find that people are people, and, you know, the struggle, the things that they face are genuinely, or generally speaking, there's a common thing. That's not necessarily my strike zone. I've worked for United Way, I've worked for Red Bull, I've worked for USC, I've worked for, you know, a lot of different kind of things, and I enjoy the nonprofit work probably the most because I think they're trying to make the world a better place. But you have to do that other work to get paid and pay the bills. And I find that, and I'd love to hear your reaction to this, Brian, or the rest of the group, because one of the things that Eric spoke about was finding your client, your type of client. But I'm pretty open. I always feel like I get out of it more than I put into it in a lot of ways. And so I'm always interested in recognizing the commonalities between different groups, but also understanding more about the challenges that people face, or the, you know, the things that people are doing. And so for me, it's sort of a world of discovery. And I find there's very few things that I would say no to. But as you said, a lot of my work comes from somebody who experienced something that I did and is now at a place. Strengths Finders and Strength Scopes, the Gallup organization, is a fun place to work because, you know, they're taking any different kind of company and helping people focus on their strengths and work within that. And, you know, it becomes easy because you kind of do the same drawings. But I don't know. I think I'm not sure that there's a value to limiting who you're, maybe understanding your strike zone has a great deal of value, but I generally don't shy away from certain things. And is there a downside to that? You know, what do you think?
I think personally for me, it's about where your passions fall. And for me, it falls around social innovation. So I think for me to be authentic, I need to search for the things I know I'm going to be in 100%, that I'm going to be fully present in. And I get the idea of, because you never know where those people that you meet are going to go either. Because, you know, you're building a network with those people. So I guess that's how I see it. I mean, right now I'm grateful, I'm thankful to have a job where I can work and do the social innovation stuff. So I think it's just about like, what is it that you want to do? What are your passions? What are you falling in love with? Is it about paying bills, or is it about doing something you truly are passionate about? I guess that's how I see it. So I don't know if there's a wrong or right answer to that.
There's a wrong answer to
Something on
it.
What's the wrong answer, Deb?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, if you're just not having, I mean, if you aren't having at least a little bit of fun doing it, that's maybe a wrong answer, you know? Like if it has, you have to at least feel like you've learned something, or you had fun, or you had an adventure, or, you know, I mean, not trying to be too sunny or optimistic about it, but, you know, if it ticks off none of those boxes for you, then at least it should be a lesson. Like, oh, okay, well, I did that, and now I'm not going to do that again. and that's a positive because it was a lesson.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I always have fun. You know, I get to draw, and I'm interested in people and what they're passionate about and what they're, you know, engaging in. And so I think I am in my strike zone when I'm drawing and when I'm listening and when I'm visualizing ideas. And, you know, illustrating ideas is a sort of a thing. I love to do that. So the content, I've done some stuff that I thought was sort of, you know, woo-woo and a little off, or, you know, different things, but I've never wanted to judge the you know, the situation. People are passionate about, they're doing it. For me, I'm always having fun, and I don't think the content is necessarily the thing. If you have somebody like politically that believes completely different than you, I think there's a great chance to maybe draw things in a way that gets people to open up their thinking and stuff. So I don't know. I'm really wrestling with the who would I not work for thing.
It makes me think. So I would say my day job allows me access to do a lot of things that could help bring change, even culturally. But my heart also still gravitates to the social impact work that we do. So I would say if I could create my ideal something, it would be, how would I work with large organizations and nonprofits on real social impact initiatives versus the typical social responsibility thing that's not sustainable and it doesn't make sense? How do I bridge the gap between creating these long-term sustainable relationships using the corporate money to serve the greater good? So I would work in that space. But to your point, Greg, because I love people and I'm curious, I wouldn't cut myself off from a particular discipline or industry, but I would cut myself off from a particular client who is not invested. A client who's not invested, where their management isn't invested, that this is a great idea, but I'm not really sure if anybody agrees with it. The one and done kind of cat that really just wants me to go in there and show off for them, and it just absolutely means nothing. Now, if it's for money, then that's what it's for. But if you really want to create a relationship, that's not the best way to start one.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think if I don't want to be working for somebody, it's someone who doesn't appreciate the work and value it, and, you know, doesn't want to pay what it's worth or something. That would probably be the one, you know, the one place, the one sort of threshold where I'd say, yeah, I just, you know, because if you have an organization that certainly can afford it but devalues it, yeah, that's time to walk away. But something that you said about social change and social, you know, I think, I don't know if I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but I think the idea of being able to do that work in a large scale thing, you know, where you can take the things you value and scale it where it's impacting more people is really important. But yet I think the place where we make the most difference is in our own neighborhoods and our own homes. And, you know, we do those sorts of things. And so, you know, I'm always sort of telling my kids, you know, that you have to focus on what you can control. And sometimes, you know, you're disheartened by the world as a large place, but you can go and scream at the top, on the mountaintops, and be defined by hate and all of those things, and ultimately you're the one, I think, who suffers the most. And so I tell them, focus on things you can do in the places where you can make an impact in your own life, and if you get lucky, you just might find yourself in a place where you're impacting more people and working for a client. And I think that just comes from like Deb said, building a network and having people. I have a friend, a colleague, who actually kind of got me into this work, who works for, he was ranked like the top speaker or presenter in all of Canada at one point for the work that he does. And he talks about so many people that he's worked with who've moved or done this or done that, are constantly calling him back in. And I think that network is so invaluable. So turning away work where you can make an impact and just be a good human being, someone who listens and values what they're doing, if that's reciprocated, that's a client, in my mind.
I agree. I would say that the work, since I've experienced it from everybody pretty much in this space, it feels like it creates an opening, a different type of opening for people in the room to be able to understand, connect, and have a different conversation. So it's agnostic of what industry you're in, but there are some people, I guess my big question is, how invested is your management in it? How invested are you in that? And that's my filter. Because if they say, well, we haven't talked to them yet, yeah, maybe not. Or I'm not really sure this is something we want to give a try. Yeah, we could have a discovery call and I might draw something for you. But, there's certain things that you don't want to invest your time in, and you just have to make a choice on that. But I do believe that the work traverses across disciplines where people are it opens things up. So to your point, I agree. Even in the community, even in the churches, everybody needs to have great conversation. How do you do that?
That's such a great point. And, I loved how Eric was talking about how he's building his thing. I would draw, I'd go to church and draw. I'd go to, I'd pay if I went to, I'd pay to be at conferences, and I'd be drawing and share that with the organizers, and it's opened up opportunities. I would, the TED Talks is a great thing, but there's so many places where you can just. I remember I was visiting a church with family one time, and I left my sketches in the pew when I left, and the pastor of that church actually, searched me out to say something about it, and it was just I don't know, but I think that the bottom line is we all have a common language, and finding a way to be in that space, and sort of remember that this common humanity, that's what I love about it, is you don't have to have a certain type of work being done or a certain type of client, because we're all people. And, the thing that I always say is we have so much more in common than different. And if we can keep that in mind, we're wrestling with the same things, and, our values aren't that different. And I don't know, it's a great work to do. If you're building your clients, if you're, volunteering your work, if you're putting yourself out there, you find that people generally receive it in a positive way, and your niche will grow, and you'll be able to develop that.
I am wondering, Eric, if just reflecting on this conversation that you just heard, do you have any thoughts?
I'm really glad that you invited me to share my little piece of this pie with so many people. I feel like my pie is expanding, getting feedback on it, because it kind of, entrepreneurship is kind of a lonely road often, and to get the feedback and the conversation, that's so much. I'm getting so much value by just sharing my little bit and having all this conversation is created around it. So thank you all for having me.